What are you hearing from kids?
Our kids, I think, are saying a lot of things, right? They tell you the truth and they're honest. And I think at different grade levels, we're hearing different feedback. And so the kids who have experienced these oppressive systems and racist policies in the past, I think are ironically missing some of those systems and the structure that they felt it provided. And I think that just speaks to how much they internalized what those systems upheld and how they were bred to kind of follow these systems, and that forced them into this certain pattern to become, what they felt like they were expected to be in a school system. And so I think the younger students, they're walking around and they seem to enjoy the freedom, but you do see this interaction where it's a little bit different, and the upperclassmen sometimes will almost kind of scoff at that, being like, hey, this is how we learned how to be these certain ways. And so helping them unlearn some of those policies, I think, and then relearn what it means to be in this community pact and how we can integrate structure and predictability into their lives without it feeling like it is so demerit-based or negative for them and limiting in the sense where they can't express themselves and still feel safe and welcomed and loved in a school setting.
So our students are telling us that they are missing a little bit of that structure that you talked about. How do we respond to that feedback from students?
So I think athletics is the perfect place to start to respond to that with. I know relationships are huge, especially in enrichments and after-school activities, and I think it gives students this opportunity to feel connected with not only their peers that are on the team, but also the adults who, coach or help out and volunteer, and really lean into those relationships to help build that structure, and gives them more of an organic space to really figure out, how do I use these soft skills, right? How do I stay organized? How do I prioritize my time? How do I make these choices with integrity and always choose to do the right thing? I think by not only seeing their coaches being able to mentor them in that way and acting in the way that they're asking their students to, but also just that buy-in with teamwork and knowing that, like I've mentioned earlier, it's bigger than you and you're a part of something that is, beyond just yourself. And so I think with athletics, it gives you this consistency. You know that every day after school, you got practice from 3 to 5, and you know that when your game comes, like, you need to have all of these items with you, and your grades need to be in line, and your parents, you had to communicate with them. And I think it really intrinsically builds a lot of soft skills that will carry students, through high school, but also well beyond, and give them a really strong foundation once they leave.
During our conversation with Kelsey Taylor, that led director at Baker, she talked a lot about having the importance of student voice. So we're excited today to have student athletes with us. Christian, welcome to Changing the Course.
Thank you for having me. My name is Christian. I'm a 10th grader here at Baker College Prep.
Can you share with our audience what sports you participated in here at Baker College Prep?
9th grade, I did soccer, and this year, my 12th grade year, I'm planning on doing track and field.
All right. And do you have any post-secondary plans that you would like to share?
I'm planning on going to DePaul University for computer science and computer engineering.
Christian, as a student athlete at Baker College Prep, can you talk to us a little bit about what that has done for your student experience as a student athlete at Baker?
Being an athlete at Baker, it really helped me because, to be honest with you, I wasn't really invested in my academics as much, but a lot of people on my team, they supported me to constantly keep going because I was on the team. They supported to make sure that I had my grades in order to be able to keep playing soccer.
And what did it feel like in an event that maybe you didn't meet the mark as far as academics? What kind of accountability as teams had for you in order to make sure like you kind of stayed on track with academics?
Well, actually, that's crazy because one of my friends, when I wasn't passing one of my classes, he ended up actually coming and actually helped me do my work. So that was actually pretty cool. But they was like, it's one of the things where if you don't complete your work, it makes you feel bad specifically because you letting your team down. If y'all got a game, you can't play. And if they lose, you're going to feel like, oh, I should have been there. My grades should have been up. So it pushes accountability.
So as a 9th grade student at Baker, you played soccer on the soccer team, not heavily focused on your academics. What were things that were happening inside of Baker, thinking about the rules and some of our policies, that may have been barriers to you participating in sports?
It was a lot. It was a lot of stuff as far as, first of all, detentions. If we had games on the weekend, it was a lot of stuff that you couldn't do. LaSalle's, you couldn't go to practice. not turning in homework, stuff like that. Grades low, obviously. You have to always be accountable for what you did. And I feel like having the system that we did have at Baker, I didn't understand it. I really didn't understand it at all when I was a freshman. But now being, a senior now, I really do understand that the system that they had in place was strict, but it was to build you up to be this person to where you get to senior year. And I didn't understand it before.
So obviously you've grown, all right? So yeah, when you come in as a ninth grader, you're 14 years old. We did have a huge break from being in person and having that community aspect to us, being in person and inside the Baker community. And now you're back in the school year, full school year as a 12th grader. So you've learned a lot of lessons over the time, right?
Yeah.
And so some of the policies that you talked about in the past were the demerit system, the LaSalle system, which prevented you from participating in games or being accountable to your teammates. We don't have those currently right now. So how are you feeling going into your track season in the spring, knowing that detentions are not something I have to worry about this year, having LaSalles are things that I don't have to worry about this year. I get to focus on my academics and meet the mark in order to play the sport that I'm passionate about.
That's a definite stress reliever for a lot of kids that's been here since freshman year. And I feel like if you're a person that's coming in new, it's going to be a reliever to you. They sadly won't be able to have 100% of that structure that, the olders have. But it's definitely a good thing because you don't have to focus as much. And it, like a lot of that stuff, it was built to structure you up, but it gave a little, like you said, academics. You can work more on your academics. Instead of being in the detention, I can be working towards getting my work done, and that's way more beneficial to try to get your work done than being in the detention and just sitting there. You know what I mean?
I understand, absolutely. So not only did we have the pleasure of speaking with Christian, but I also have another 12th grade student here at Baker College Prep who I would love to introduce to our audience today.
Hi, I'm Dashia. Thanks for having me.
Nasai, what grade are you in?
I'm in 12th grade.
And currently, what sport did you participate in this year at Baker College Prep?
Basketball.
Basketball. And what role did you play in that basketball team?
Point guard and captain.
All right. And would you like to share any post-secondary plans that you have with the audience?
I plan to go to Xavier University of New Orleans, Louisiana as a political science major.
So as a 10th grader, it was a time in which Noble had policies that included students earning demerits, which led to detentions. If you didn't do your homework, you would get a LaSalle. What was your experience like with that pass system?
I did not like it at all. Well, I've been to every school that I went to wasn't like strict at all. So I guess I felt like I still got it a little bit, some sort of entitlement that like I could do whatever I want because like I do have good grades and I always been considered smart. So I had some sense of entitlement. But I know my first week of school, I got a detention. My first week I transferred, so I hated it. And it was only terrible because the way that it was structured, but like the idea, I always understood the idea, but it was just like the way that it was running. Like detention's 2 hours in silence, copying down the handbook. I always knew that something was like wrong with that. It wasn't productive, and it never made sense to me. But LaSalle's, I didn't like LaSalle's either. But like, who would? But I always was like, okay, I understand. Like, I didn't do my homework like that. But in a sense, it kind of babied me a little bit. Like, oh, I can just not do my homework, stay a little 30 minutes after school, do my homework, turn it in for the same points. So it was really like, it didn't necessarily help me grow as a student or like a person because it was like I was getting baby. I had more time to do stuff past deadline, and I could always count on like, oh, I don't feel like doing it, then somebody gonna force me to do it tomorrow.
So I had the pleasure of speaking to your classmate today, Christian, who talked about how sports played a part into being accountable to the community, specifically like his community as a team, the sports that he's played on. Mm-hmm. Did your attitude change at all during basketball season about those LaSalles and those detentions as they could take you away from being there for your team?
I think my demerits were pretty contempt, but my LaSalles was definitely less because I didn't want to miss practice. And,
Because what happened if you missed practice?
If I missed practice, it was like the next day I would be burnt out or I'd be tired or I'll miss a play or something. Or like the next day we have a game and I'll be lost, especially because I started.
So you came in as a 10th grader. In that 10th grade year, we had policies in place that allowed demerits and detentions and LaSalle's to be barriers to student athletics and participation. As a 12th grader, we no longer have those policies. How have those impacted your overall experience as a student athlete at Baker in comparison to your 9th grade year?
So, like I said, I didn't like it, but now I kind of wish that it was back, even though I didn't agree with like how it was. I feel like being at Baker now, I can see like it's totally different. Like the underclassmen are totally different from how I was when I was underclassmen. Like although I was getting demerits and getting detentions, like some stuff, like it's just not the same. I feel like now without like having LaSalle's and having demerits, it's like no real structure. Although we have like R3s now, I feel like it's like being babied again. Like, oh, you can do this, and we go talk about it, then it's okay. And since I have a little sister, I know that she's a little hard-headed, so she come to school, she does what she wants. She'll go to R3, and then it'll be the same thing next week. And part of the reason why I didn't, like after a while, like of doing the detentions, I stopped getting them so much is because like I didn't want to stay for 2 hours after school every Friday. And I don't think that it should be 2 hours after school on Friday. I just think that we need something because I just didn't want to stay. That's why I stopped messing up. And I don't think that you should put fear in people to make them do better, like behavior-wise. But I think that something needs to be there to replace it because it feels like there's no structure. And even with LaSalle's, like how I said it's babying me, I feel like every student responds to things differently. And just because like I didn't like it and because like I felt baby is because of the type of person that I am. Like I'm a procrastinator and stuff like that. But every student is not like me. So I think that we should still have LaSalle's, but the detentions, I think that like the way that we had it should be changed. Like maybe like the time and like what we was doing so we can make our time more productive.
So you mentioned you feel like there's a lack of structure for some incoming freshmen and our 10th graders. Do you feel like if they participated in sports, like that would supplement that structure and routine that you say is needed right now at Baker?
I think that it does temporarily, but not for like a long term because of course like when you on a sports team, like you want to play, it's fun. Like win or lose, it's fun regardless. You feel like you're part of a family, but like once it's over, no. And like something that our team struggled with was like being on time for school, coming to school so that you can practice and that you can play in the games, like not getting in trouble, not talking back. And one thing that I personally feel is that we don't take our sports as seriously as we should at Baker. So I know for one of the games, we had several players show up late because we was getting out of school all of January early because of something about COVID. So it was like you go home, you come back, and like it was no structure. Like, you know, at first we used to get in trouble for not being on time for school. Like you get your demerits, and although like you would get talked to about it, now like you're not coming on time for games, which is hurting the whole team. So I feel like it is some structure in terms of like, oh, okay, I'm not going to get into a fight because I don't want to get kicked off the team. But like once that's over, like you don't have nothing else to want to push yourself for.
So what would be the next thing? So like, okay, like I played basketball, my basketball season ended. Right now I'm not connected to a sports team or to even another adult as a coach. Like what advice would you give a student in between seasons to keep them motivated and keep that structure in place so they can have a great experience at Baker?
I think that to keep yourself motivated, you should do all the extracurricular, well, not all of them, but do most of them. Like, I do Pride, I do student government, I basically do everything that the school has to offer. So I would say, like, find you a good set of friends, find a hobby. Even if it's, like, outside of school, just do something productive with your time and always try to find things that's going to better yourself, not only as a student, as an athlete, like if that's working out or even going across the street to the gym we got and practicing. Always like better yourself, find something to better your craft.
And I think as an athletic director, what I've tried to do this year is, you know, be there with the people, get the voices of